Back. I'm back. Ow. Ow. Ah!
How fast did I do it? This is it! Hi everyone, what is up? Welcome back to the channel. New.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Books and Their Covers. I'm Francis, and this month has been kind of crazy for me. If you know me, if you know this channel, you know that I'm used to reading like 4 books a month, maybe 5, probably 3.
This month, though,
I went crazy. I went on and decided to read 12 books. I went crazy and I went proud of myself as well. And so I wanted to talk to you guys about this. I wanted to let you guys know what I read, my opinion on what I read, and
why this happened.
so you guys know how hard sometimes it is if you're working and you have to read and you have to record and you have to go to the gym and you have to do everything at the same time. You guys know how hard it gets, right? Audiobooks are a very useful tool because sometimes you just don't have the time. You guys know this. You guys are out there in the real world, just like me, and we all know that sometimes you just do not have the time to pick up a book and read it for too long. So I started trying audiobooks and I ended up reading 12 books because of them, and it just helped me so much. It just made me so much more productive when it comes to this. People always say that audiobooks suck, you don't retain half the story, it's horrible, blah 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 blah. Silence those Seriously, silence the idiocy that comes out of those people. I've heard about authors like Stephen King and other huge authors. They say themselves that they do listen to audiobooks while they are driving, because if you just can't pick up the book and read it,
it's gonna become hard.
So, the first book that I went for this month was actually an audiobook. I was listening to this book at the same time as I was reading another one, obviously not listening and reading at the same time exactly.
It was actually amazing.
So the first book that I went for this month was Night Music by Jojo Moyes. I rated this book as a 3-star book, and it talks about this woman that is made to move into a small village with their 2 kids, into this house that she suddenly inherits. But apparently, everyone is interested in going for this house, in living there, in fixing it up, and actually making a luxury estate out of it.
And it gets completely crazy.
This house is called the Spanish House. The first critique that I have to this book, and that is a bad one, is it's called Night Music because of one single scene. And all the freaking time the book revolves around this house called the Spanish House. So why not just call the book the Spanish House? It's right there, being screamed at your face. Call it the Spanish House. But this character, the main character called Isabel, is this broken little woman who just never knew about anything. She never knew how to do anything alone in her life. She plays the violin, and that's the only good thing she knows how to do. Somehow, this useless woman who ends up losing her husband and moving to this little village is like the prize, is like the woman that every guy comes close to and wants, for no apparent reason. Like, she is the dullest character there is. And somehow, every guy goes for her. It makes no sense. It makes no sense, absolutely, and that was so bad for me. The twists were good, the story ended up turning good-ish, but that part is just so bad. It's like Bella in... It's like Bella in Twilight all over again. In the end, she ends up learning everything and doing everything completely alone. She doesn't need anyone anymore. She is amazing. She is the badass ass woman in the whole world, and she ends up with the guy she likes. The other guy, who is a bad guy but wanted her as well, ends up nothing. He kinda actually doesn't lose anything. He becomes this pitiful character, and it's just bad. It's just bad. Then the second book that I went for was The Secret of Nightingale Wood. And this story is a little bit more interesting. I went for 4 stars for this one, and it was written by Lucy Strange. Now this is a story, again, of a family that moves into a small house, but in this small house, this is more like World War II kind of thing. And so they moved into this house, which is placed right near some woods called the Nightingale Woods. From the first moment that this little girl called Henry, or Henrietta, gets to the house, she starts seeing some strange things, like some weird people walking around in the woods. She smells fire burning. Everything is kind of weird, and you're swallowed into this weird, mysterious atmosphere, and you start learning new things about all the characters. And I actually really liked all the characters in this book. They were all so mysterious at the beginning, and it's really cool to get to the end of the book and actually understand the whole story. The way it's unraveled is really, really good, and I really enjoyed this one. 4 out of 5 stars. The third book that I went for was one of those that I actually just felt like grading as a 1 out of 5 or half out of 5. It annoyed me because if there's one thing I hate, and I think everyone understands this, is when you read a whole synopsis, which is already something we booktubers and we book lovers try to avoid doing because of the spoilers, and then when you start reading the book because you like the synopsis, it's actually nothing to do with that shit that has been written in the back of the book. We Are the Ants was written by Sean David Hutchinson, and it says that it's about this guy who is always being abducted by aliens. And if you are one that takes interest in aliens and other life forms and this kind of mystery, are we alone? If you are someone like this, you will immediately think,
I want to read this book.
and I was actually really interested in reading it until I started, because since I started, the whole synopsis, which is about this guy who is abducted by aliens all the time, becomes less and less and less and less accurate until you reach the end of the book and it has nothing to do with anything at all. This kid, he is homosexual and he has a lot of problems because of this. He is really conflicted, he is mistreated, he is bullied, and he's really, really depressed. So here's the twist. Like, if you offered a depressed person the opportunity to save the world, a person who has no one he loves, a person who is tired and pissed off at the world, would that person press the button to save the world, or would they just let it die? The story in itself is actually interesting, but it's branded as something completely different than it is. It's actually a YA, it's not sci-fi, and it's nothing to do with alien abductions. In the end, you end up realizing that the alien abduction thing was all in his head. It was all him making it up to actually cope with what was inside, and that is really interesting. Again, I love that concept, just do not sell it as a guy who is always being abducted by aliens. After that, I went for a short story that I actually really enjoyed, and this story is called Small Spaces. This book was written by Catherine Arden, and there's actually a second part coming out.
And it's a book about Halloween.
It's the story of this girl who goes in a journey with her school to this pumpkin patch in some farm close to their little village, to their small town. Now when they get there, there's all this mystery about the owner of the farm, who seems to be this crazy girl that the main character found trying to throw out a book on a bridge, going all crazy and scared and crying and completely maniac trying to throw the book out. Now it happens that the main character, Ollie, who is 11 years old, loves books, and so she tries to save this book and she ends up doing it. She ends up being successful, and this book is about the story of two brothers who like the same girl, and they both made a pact with this pumpkin head man who made them both disappear. It's just completely nuts, but the story is great. It's a great kid's story. I loved it, and you guys know I'm a sucker for kids' stories. The sixth book that we're talking about today is The Hiding Place by C.J. Tudor. C.J. Tudor has this writing style that is exactly the same as Stephen King. Let's say Stephen King has like 30 years of experience on her, and she's just now starting. But it's exactly the same. It reminds me of Stephen King through and through. It's amazing. And so I wanted to try reading something else from her this month. I have read The Chalkman. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was her first book, and you could see that. But at the same time, it was amazing for her first ever published and written book. This one came after the sequel, I think, and it's about this guy who comes into this town where he used to live when he was a small kid because he is called back, basically. Someone sends him an email saying that they know what happened to his sister. And this ends up being a really creepy story, and this is why I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. The other book that I went for, and I was expecting so much for this one, but it was A Map of Days by Ransom Riggs. I have loved the series from the beginning until the third book. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But when it comes to this one, I'm gonna rate it 3 out of 5 stars. The story has nothing special, nothing at all, like nothing really happens. It's like a transition book, and we all know that transition stories only to transition do not work. We don't really like it, we want more, we expect more. This was about Jacob, the main character, and his friends who suddenly are made to do some kind of community work, because now that everything has passed in the last book, now that the whole war is solved, they just have to fix things. So Jacob is completely messed up about this idea. He hates it. He doesn't want to do this. He just wants to save the world like he used to do. And he wants to feel like he belongs, like he's saving people, like he's doing something important. It's completely unspecial. It's completely normal, the story. Jacob tries to do something special. He ends up messing everything up, and they end up being exactly in the same place again. But hey, actually,
Let me know in the comments down there what you thought about a map of days.
because I want to know if I'm not the only one thinking this, or if I'm actually the only one. I don't know. This one didn't cut it for me. Now, the book that I have next was a book that actually got a lot of talk in BookTube. Back when it came out, it wasn't that long ago. And this book is Magic for Liars by Sarah Gailey. I went into this book thinking it would be something really cool, really interesting. Everyone was talking about it back then. I went into it with a lot of expectations, which all of us would say is a horrible mistake. But I did so nonetheless, and when I got there, when I got into the story, it was just so simple and obvious from the beginning. The story starts when this woman is found torn into half in the library of this magic school. So they call Ivy Gamble, the main character, who is the sister of one of the professors and is a private investigator. They call her to investigate because the magical police or whatever it was has done nothing until now, has found nothing, and they call her. Now, here's my problem with this. From the first moment in the story, Ivy Gamble shows that she is not good at investigating. She just investigates the usual case of husband betraying wife or wife betraying husband, all this kind of thing that private investigators apparently have tons of. She is called into the school nonetheless, and all the time she's doubting herself. All the freaking time. Who in their perfect mind would call someone to investigate who has no self-confidence at all and no confidence in their observations and their ability to investigate and find out things and solve this murder? Who would call her just because she's the sister of one of the professors? That's even worse, because you never want to call someone who is related to one of the people who is close to the case. Moving on from this one, because we have to. It was bad. And we're actually gonna get into another bad one. And this one that I'm talking about right now is All the Missing Girls. I have no words. I rated it 2 out of 5. Again, I think 1 out of 5 would be cool and a good rating for this book, because it's this girl, the typical story where this girl comes back to her hometown to solve some things that were left behind. This was the most obvious and stupidest twist. To be honest, it was obvious because it was just bad and one would think
This could have happened.
but no, it's so bad, it probably didn't. This would be such a bad storyline that it probably didn't happen. Oh no, it did. So 2 out of 5 stars for All the Missing Girls. I thought it would be an interesting thriller. I really did, but in the end the story was just bad. And so after this review, you probably think that I'm crazy because of the points that I'm gonna give to this next book, but like I told you before, I just like kids' stories. Every heart a doorway, from the Wayward Children series. So there are lots of different worlds apart from the real world where we are, and there are some special kids who end up finding doors to those worlds, and stepping into those doors, they will stay and live in that world for a while. This world will change them completely, turn them into who they really are, they were really supposed to be. At some point, it just spits them out, and they are left with nowhere to belong to. Nancy, the main character, finds herself in this school after having been kicked out of her own world. Now, as soon as she gets to this school, murders start happening, which obviously makes her the main suspect. I like the feel of the story. I like how it runs. It's a story that feels good to read. So 4 out of 5 stars for Every Heart a Doorway. The book that I read after was actually the sequel to this one, which is Down Among the Sticks and Bones. And why am I talking about these two together? Not only because they belong to the same series, but it's so interesting what they did. The author, Shannon Maguire is actually telling you the story behind the one character that was murdering other people and other kids in the first story. It's making that one character that you simply thought was plain bad this morally gray character. So it went for 4 out of 5 stars again. It's a simple story, it's a simple book, it seems to be a simple series, but it's really enjoyable. And because I need some rest myself now, we are getting into the last of the 12 books that I read in July. This month was completely crazy, and this last book was This Is Going to Hurt. This Is Going to Hurt was written by Adam Kay, who himself has a really interesting story. He started by studying to be a doctor, he went into the profession, and this book is kind of a diary. It's not really a romance, it's not a story, it's a diary. He quit being a doctor because something horrible that happened at the end of his career. He just couldn't deal with it and he quit, and he became a movie writer, which is the exact opposite of professions. Like, in one of them you're saving people, in the other one you're entertaining people. It's so unexpected. Everything in the book, it's just so unexpected. The book is written like little diary entries, and it just gives you a picture at how bad sometimes the system works, how bad it works for doctors and for nurses. This was the last book that I read in July. This was the 12th. I actually started reading another one, but I didn't finish it yet because now we have the Disney-a-thon, and if you don't know much about that yet, just head on to Twitter. The link is going to be right down there, and you just head on, just subscribe to that. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. Do not forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Share the video if you want to, if you found it awesome, and if you want to give these reviews to someone else that might like the books that I liked. And don't forget to tell me in the comments, did you like A Map of Days? Did you enjoy any of the other books that I enjoyed, or did you like them or dislike them, or what? Let me know down there in the comments. I love you. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to subscribe again, and I will see you at the next one. Bye!